Hello, and welcome back to the penultimate episode of Cooking with Jamie. This week, we are talking about capers, the salty little underrated devils of the kitchen. I am so excited to get started, so let's do this. The first recipe we're making is an Italian salsa verde. It's super fresh, and despite there being quite a bit of oil in the recipe, it's really springy and exciting. For this recipe, we are going to need 2 cups of mixed fresh herbs. I used parsley and cilantro, 1/2 cup of extra virgin olive oil, 2 tablespoons of lemon juice, 2 tablespoons of capers rinsed and drained, and 3 cloves of garlic. The only real step to this recipe is to throw everything into a food processor. So we're going to mix all of these ingredients up and do so. You're going to pulse for just a couple seconds until everything is chopped up pretty small. This is going to be the pieces are going to be a lot bigger than a pesto, but definitely not like a normal salsa or anything like that. To serve this, you could do so many things. You can add some balsamic vinegar and put it on top of a really delicious salad. You could just put it on top of any red meat, specifically beef or lamb. Or you could toss a bunch of nice grilled shrimp into it, or my favorite, which is tossing potatoes and roasted Brussels sprouts. Roasted potatoes and roasted Brussels sprouts in this delicious salsa. It's so good, and I hope you guys try it out because it only takes minutes. Now, our second dish is a really classic chicken piccata. It's Italian OG here, and I'm so excited to share this recipe with you because I've been making it since forever. For our chicken piccata, we're going to need all-purpose flour, 1/4 a cup of lemon juice, 2/3 cup chicken stock, 2 tablespoons of capers, 1/2 cup parsley, and 1 large chicken breast, pounded thin. We're also, of course, going to need salt and pepper. The first step is to slice this chicken breast. You can do so however you want, but I prefer cutting the chicken into 1-inch wide strips. You're then going to dredge it in your flour, which is already salted. And then cover with ground black pepper. I did this, as you can see, I fast forwarded this a little bit because it is one of the most boring things to watch in the entire world. Our next step is to sear the chicken in some hot butter until browned on all sides. Once your chicken is browned on all sides, add the lemon juice, chicken stock, and capers to the pan and let simmer until the sauce is fully reduced and the chicken is cooked through. If you need to add more chicken stock in order to let the chicken cook longer, you can of course do so. Now once everything is fully cooked, you can either serve this on top of pasta or on top of an arugula salad or a spinach salad. Really whatever you want to do. Traditionally, it's usually served on top of a noodle. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the butter and oil debate because it has been around for a really long time and I want to discuss why sometimes you use butter and sometimes you use oil to cook something. Now, the first thing that you got to understand is the smoke point of butter and oil. The smoke point of butter is around 200 to 250 degrees Fahrenheit, whereas most oils lie in the 400 degree Fahrenheit range. To put that in perspective, the medium setting on a stove is usually around 350 to 400 degrees Fahrenheit. So if you're searing anything or sauteing anything in a really high temperature, your best bet is to use an oil. Olive oil or vegetable oil is generally preferred. This smoke chart that I have here is brought to you by Spruce Eats. The second thing that we can understand if we want to is water solubility. Now, certain flavors or chemicals, because all flavors are chemicals, are water soluble. What that means is that the flavor is released when water is introduced to the cooking. Butter, of course, as I'm sure you can imagine, has a lot more water than oil. All oils have no water, whereas each tablespoon of butter has about 1.3 grams of water. The flavors that make onions so special, for instance, are water soluble, which is why, despite cooking onions at a fairly high temperature, we often cook them in butter, because the flavors get a lot more strong and unctuous if you're cooking it with a little bit of water. In some restaurants, you cook the onions in oil, but then splash some water onto it for the last minute of cooking time, so those flavors are still released. The general rule that we go by is protein is cooked at a higher temperature and therefore you use oil, whereas vegetables are cooked at a lower temperature and therefore you use butter. However, you can see in this recipe we used butter instead of oil to cook the chicken. The reason we did this is because of the flour. In Italian and French cooking, flour and butter is a golden combination because it just tastes so good. And you really are browning this chicken at a fairly low temperature. But if you want to stick with the rule, protein with oil and vegetables with butter, you can definitely do so, and it's almost foolproof. Also keep in mind that if you're using a cast iron pan, always use oil and never use butter. Cast iron pans are so spectacular because they get really hot and maintain that heat for a long period of time, so you're always going to want to use oil in the bottom of a cast iron pan. Alright, I guess that was my lecture for the day, and I hope you guys didn't find it too boring. Now let's move on to the next recipe. Our next recipe is a really fresh and fun salad, which I am so excited for. Now, the only real prep that we've got to do for this salad is pickle some onions. Pickled red onions are one of my favorite staple ingredients in the kitchen, so I wanted to show you guys at some point during this series how to do it. For this pickled red onion, we're going to add 1/4 of a cup of apple cider vinegar and 1/4 a cup of red wine vinegar and 1 tablespoon of fennel seeds into a pot with 1 clove of crushed raw garlic. We're also going to add 2 to 3 tablespoons of white sugar into this mixture and let simmer for a few minutes and then let it reach a boil. Meanwhile, we're going to coat our red onions in some salt. Now, if you aren't being cinematic and pretentious, you would do this in a much larger bowl. Once your vinegar mixture has reached a boil, you'll strain it on top of our red onions and let that cool, covered on the counter until it's ready to go in the refrigerator. You can keep it in the refrigerator until you're ready to serve. Now, speaking of serving, where do the capers come in? Well, we are adding these red onions on top of a salad along with capers. This salad is an arugula, avocado, tomato salad, and it's super duper good. The nice brininess of the onion and the capers go so well together with the freshness of the lemon juice. If you feel like you're missing a dressing component to this salad, I would urge you to mix lemon juice with a little bit of olive oil and maybe some cracked black pepper. And that is all for today, folks. We have one more episode of Cooking with Jamie until the end of the summer, and I hope you guys stay tuned. As always, you can find these recipes and the exact specifications either on the Benzonia Public Library website under the Cooking with Jamie tab, or you can go to the library yourself and pick up a hard copy of these recipes. I hope you had fun, and I hope you tried out some of these dishes. Until next time, bye-bye.